From home goods to fashion and can cost a pretty penny. But there is a way to get great things without maxing out your credit cards.
I love this. It can be as simple and as fun as heading to your local flea market. And here to tell us how to spot the real finds is vintage expert and interior designer Bob Richter. Now, you're not vintage because you're about 28 years old, but...
Right, exactly.
So what makes something vintage, and when we say vintage, what are we really saying?
Well, I think vintage in its general term is 20 years old, but you know, some things can be a little bit newer than that and be vintage. Wine, for instance, has to have a year, but clothing, this is from the 30s, this is from the 40s. That's vintage.
That's vintage. And usually 30s, 40s, I mean, you can't say across the board means quality too.
It does. Stuff was made to last.
Yeah.
This sweater was from Brooks Brothers.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of these accessories down here on the this bald woman.
Yes. She's trending at the moment. So this is Jordache. It has the look that's right. The sunglasses.
Oh,
now somebody remembers
those
the
are very
Jordache
80s.
commercial.
I do. I know the Jordache jeans.
Yes, exactly. So this went with those Jordache jeans, and I got this at the flea market for $3.
Wow.
With the original Jordache tags on it, which I have somewhere. I think they escaped this segment. But you know, sunglasses are so expensive when you go into a retail store. But if you go to a flea market, you can have them between $3 to $10.
Yeah, and you got the look there.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about the scarves you have there? Some silk scarves, and is that cotton?
Yes. I want to make sure I had the ladies covered, so, you know.
Thank you.
Add a little scarf, and you've got some panache in your outfit. These are $5 to $10 at flea markets.
Yeah.
This one is a warm guy that can be worn by men or women, and this is from a school in Britain. They all had different scarves to match the colors of their school.
Like Hogwarts. This is Harry Potter colors.
Exactly. Harry Potter's always trending.
Yeah. What about belts?
Belts are great. Again, this is something you can pick up $5, $10. Switch off the buckles.
Oh, wait, that's a buckle right there?
Yeah, this is a buckle.
Petrified wood.
Yes.
Wow, that is something cool. That's cool. That never goes out of style.
Right, vintage 70s, but I mean, you know, organic is really hot right now, and you add this to an already existing belt, and you've got that vintage look. I think a lot of people get worried that they're going to look like they're from like a storybook or something like that. Well, yeah, which is something that, you know, I deal
like
with on a daily basis. Exactly. But, you know, you can just add a little vintage piece.
Yeah.
Like a vintage belt or a vintage belt buckle.
Yeah, it's not Dallas Buyers Club. You're just kind of adding one piece.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the military stuff is really hot right now, too. Add a military belt buckle, you're in business.
Now, this, you got, I think you got lucky with this, a Brooks Brothers sweater.
I bought this from a dealer who got it out of a house, and it was in an attic for about 50 years.
Well, that's my concern. If you're buying stuff that's a lot older, do you have to get it dry cleaned? Is it cleaned before you buy it, or what's that whole process
That's a great question. I travel with a plastic bag in my shoulder bag, and I usually put things in there just in case it was exposed to any moths or anything like that, and I take it to my dry cleaner. But my total cost is still about 75% less than if I went to a retail store.
It's a real good gamble.
Yeah,
really.
And no one else is going to be wearing this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and look at this. This is beautiful.
Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorites.
Looks a little itchy.
You know what? Well, you got to wear a shirt underneath it.
Yeah,
but it's got this little cool insignia from a school.
Very cute.
Yeah.
And also our accessories here. We have some costume jewelry, because that, obviously, ladies, we all use, we all need.
Yeah, and people don't really understand, like, so this looks, you know, relatively like it would cost a little bit of money in a retail store, right? This is $40 at the flea market, and it's rhinestones from the 1930s.
And is that a Buddha?
That's jade.
This is a little jade Buddha, yeah. And then you could switch them out with a little white Buddha here. And I always say, like, these are vintage ring boxes with vintage rings in them.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, but let's say you just want to touch, like you're giving your sweetheart for Valentine's Day a ring. Put the ring in a vintage box.
What about an engagement ring? Can you do a vintage engagement ring?
You can, exactly. But all of these are vintage rings, and I just put them in vintage boxes.
That's a very nice box.
I like the box better than the ring, to be honest with you.
I do too.
These are pins. Where'd you find these?
Well, these come from flea markets as well. I wear a pin on the back of my hat that was my grandmother's. You know, I'm a guy, so I'm not going to wear a brooch on my lapel.
I'd never even thought of that.
I put it on the back of my hat.
That's very nice.
Yeah, so that's a nice little touch.
You got a doggy?
Yeah, exactly. This is from the 1930s, Bakelite. This is just a little bronze piece. But these are like, you know, 10 bucks, 15 bucks.
Leather goods, too.
That never goes out of style, right?
I knew you were gonna like that one.
We do, yeah, Louis Vuitton.
So this has a cute little story. This looked like the kind of thing that, yes, that would cost a lot of money. But I found it at the flea market. It was covered in mold. You wouldn't want to touch it. It looked like a science experiment in the back of your fridge.
Oh no.
but I put it in a plastic bag. That bag I carry. Took it to my shoe guy. If you have a good shoe guy, you also have a good bag guy. He dipped it and cleaned it. My total cost, 50 bucks at the flea market, 75 bucks to him, 125 for a Louis Vuitton bag.
And what would it retail for?
I mean, conservatively, $1,500.
Now, let me ask you this. While we're on this great find here, what should you pass on? If you see something, how far gone is too far gone for you to buy?
I think that's a very personal question. You know, it's like sometimes people like a little age in something, but I always say if it's fabric, check the fabric. You know, moth holes are difficult, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, you know, I'm an interior designer, so I do vintage furniture and things. Like anything that has fabric on it, you want to just, you know, think twice, buy once.
Right.
I like the idea that you said you can go to use your shoe guy
Yes.
at the cleaners to do all this.
Yeah.
My guy does the shoes, does that. I didn't realize I could bring my bags
And conditions
to him.
all of them. My shoe guy has diabetes, so I didn't want to give him candy for Christmas, so I gave him some vintage wallets. He loved it because he digs the old leather. And this is my passport case.
Cool.
So I just got back from Prague on Sunday, and I was proud to whip this out because nobody else had one. This is a vintage cigarette case, which I've repurposed for my business cards.
Good.
Quickly, some more, obviously not fabric, but we've got
Practical.
some more glass and brass.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go to somebody's house for dinner, people don't like to have a handful of flowers, so I buy vintage vases over there at the flea market, again, between $10 and $15, put a couple flowers in it, and hostess is always happy to
And are they always willing to work with you on the price? I mean, when you're at a flea
Absolutely.
market, you can bargain and get a better deal, right?
Bargaining's the name
So
of the
it
game
can't
at flea
hurt.
markets. It's built in, and people have been doing it for centuries, but people are afraid to bargain. So I always say, make sure that you compliment the item first, because people go right for the jugular.
But should you act like you're kind of disinterested? I mean, if you over-compliment, it seems like then they've got you.
Well, you want to compliment, but not be overly complimentary. It's a fine line, and you get the balance after a while. But the bottom line is you ask their price, and then you ask them if they could do better.
It can't hurt, right?
Do you ever do the walk away and come back?
All the time.
Okay, good.
Let's talk quickly about this weekend, what you have going on here. There's a vintage show.
There is the Metropolitan Vintage Clothing Show. It's at the Metropolitan Pavilion. I'll be there later this afternoon, and some of my very favorite dealers are there. I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post about their last show called the Gentleman's Vintage Show, and there's going to be vintage clothing there from all the decades.
I love this because you're actually you're recycling, you're repurposing, you're going green and saving green too.
It does not get more green than wearing things that someone else used to wear
Yeah.
All right.
after they're cleaned.
Yeah.
Good point. Thank you, Bob Richter. Again, we appreciate you coming in today.